Oh, this is Dustin Baker and Brevy Bright Lights. Man, this is a fun show to do. I'm going to start off by saying, and I'm sure Brevin feels the same, I am utterly flabbergasted by this version of Minnesota Vikings. I think the next 25 minutes, half hour, will turn into a love festival, as it should. But we want to get into all of this stuff with the win over the Texans, the most commanding victory the Vikings have had in years. I told my wife this is the best I've seen them look since 2017 with no debate. Like, there have been other good games where the Vikings have played well, but not like this. So, Brevin, I'm going to do the same thing for, I think Tyler Eiler might be joining us, so we shall see. I'm going to give you an utterly, totally blank canvas to react to Vikings Texans 34-7.
I think I have a bit of a reputation, lately at least, for being kind of pessimistic and not so positive about the Minnesota Vikings. But through 3 weeks, I don't think it's a question. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I really sat down and scratched my head about it, and I tried to think the Minnesota Vikings are currently the best team in the NFL. Um, I feel
Weird.
ri- I feel ridiculous for saying that, but if you just look at it, like I think if the Saints won this week, that would have been the only team I would have been like, okay, because they dominated everybody they played until today. So if they won in a convincing fashion today, I'd be like, okay, maybe the Saints got us. But like through 3 weeks, like nobody's better than the Vikings. Nobody's better than the Sam Darnold led Minnesota Vikings. Just the way they're winning, the dominance they're displaying. I mean, two victories by 3 possessions. The victory over San Fran last week was dominant. If you watch the game, you know for 60 minutes Minnesota was in control of that game. So, hi Tyler.
What up, man?
I'm just telling everybody that the Minnesota Vikings are the best team in the NFL right now. Nothing crazy, but yeah, just I don't see another team in the NFL because even if you look at the other 3-0 teams like Kansas City, Pittsburgh, I think Seattle's 3-0. I might be
Mm-hmm.
missing one or two. Like none of them are as convincingly 3-0 as the Vikings. And if you're not saying that the Vikings have been the best team in the NFL through 3 weeks, the only reason you're saying it is because of Sam Darnold. That's the only reason you think that. And to that, I'd say watch Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to Tyler's blank canvas reaction, but the way that I feel about this, Brevin, is if you make power rankings based on how current football teams are playing, it's only the Chiefs that could be ranked ahead of the Vikings.
Yeah.
If they use them based on teams' upside or lifetime achievement, you can probably have the 49ers and Bills ahead of the Vikings, and I expect that's what the world to do. And that's okay. I get it.
Mhm.
I've done power rankings like that. But the thing that's so extraordinary about these Vikings is they do not feel accidental or fluky one iota. I'm gonna one of my observations that I'm gonna get in depth into. I've never seen the Vikings have a next man up mentality at all like this. It doesn't matter that Jordan Haddison's out. It doesn't matter TJ Hawkinson's out. It None of that matters. You don't even miss them. That's how bizarre this is. I've never said it. I tried to think of sports analogies like that where it just doesn't matter that guys are missing, and I can't find any yet. But Tyler, I don't want to steal the whole segment. Welcome to the show, sir. In your new environment, there, the Vikings spanked the Texans. Who'd have thunk it? What say you?
Yeah. I thought it was a great performance by Brian Flores' defense once again. I feel like just with the amount of new faces that were coming in this offseason, there were some questions around the Vikings defense. And I think it's safe to say that those questions can be laid to rest. Like, this is looking like a top 10 unit at the very least, if not top five.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to give it a couple more weeks before I make that bold of a proclamation. But I mean, what they did against San Fran, what they did against Houston was remarkable to say the least. Took me by surprise. I know Andrew Van Ginkel is really good, given that, I covered the Dolphins. I knew he would be a stud. But, like, Bernard is kind of surprising me a little bit. I know he was supposed to be a Daniel Hunter replacement. I guess I was expecting less. I was expecting to be disappointed, which I don't watch a ton of Texans, but, like, new pass rusher coming right after Daniil Hunter. I mean, I guess it was just human nature in me to expect to be let down, but Grenard has been really, really good too. So, yeah, just this defense as a whole. I could mention so many other guys, but I feel like this is a defense driven team like it was 5 years ago, even though Kevin O'Connell's leading the team. It feels like the defense is carrying this team. You know, Aaron Jones is great. Sam Darnold has been better than expected. Kevin O'Connell's play calling is always great for the most part, except the Powell tush push thing. But I really feel like that this is the year that the Vikings defense goes back to its old glory days.
So I've got some things to get off my chest, and I have 4 hours to think about this one when I'm driving home, so you'll have to forgive me if these get real deep in the weeds. So Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter left this team in March, and we thought for, 6 months, hopefully we can get away with letting that happen. I'm here to tell you those were good decisions. We are not trying to tread water because those guys are gone. We improved because they were gone. Not because they're shitty players, because they spent their assets and resources elsewhere and made the whole team better. So kudos to the general manager for making those tough decisions, because through 3 games, you got so many more guys to replace those dudes that it wasn't just, we'll be fine without them. It's we got better. One of the things that's been evident to me, because I watch a lot of football, not just the Vikings, is I think the Vikings are one of the only team that didn't have any rust from the preseason. Like, outside of CJ Ham's fumble, there has been no traditional Cousins in week 1 had to shake. I don't think he's actually hurt. I think he just had to shake off being off of football for 11 months or whatever it was. So whatever they did this July and August, the Vikings need to replicate it again next year, because this has been marvelous. And then 2 other things before I hop into some questions for you guys. So another thing that dawned on me is last year during the Lambeau game where Cousins got hurt, there was a pass and a score to Jordan Addison where the Vikings went up, I think, 24-3.
Mhm.
And I remember saying to my wife on my couch, holy shit, we haven't been like this in a game in years, since 2019, where we were stepping on somebody's throat. And I've had all this time to think about it. That might have been the natural progression point for Kevin O'Connell to hit his groove, because when he has a starting quarterback, that's what he's done ever since that moment, is step on teams. Now, it's not going to continue every single game here, but the moment Cousins hit his groove, and O'Connell evidently did, they went 24-3 over Green Bay in week 7 or whatever it was, week 8, and then Cousins got hurt. Well, they went and got Darnold, who hasn't been a downgrade at all from Cousins, and they're just beating teams handily. So I'd like to think that something clicked after a year and a half. O'Connell finally got it, and the offense really hit its groove. And it just so helps that Aaron Jones is doing the thing and getting 5.5 yards per carry. That makes all the difference in the world. Now, my segue to my next question. Back in early August, Yannick Eckhart and I messaging on our work Slack channel when McCarthy was cooking in training camp. It was all positive vibes after a real shitty July. And Yannick and I kept saying, we need to pinch ourselves. This doesn't feel right. This is way too good to be true. That's exactly how we felt today. And so we're trying to figure out what's the other shoe to drop. This type of glory doesn't happen to Vikings fans. With that said, Brevin, if something wonky happens tomorrow with Sam Darnold's MRI, what is our contingency plan?
I think the only contingency plan can be hoping to God that Nick Mullins can figure out his turnover issues. So that would really be it. Sam Darnold is playing really well. I don't think any of us are gonna try to convince anybody that Sam Darnold's leading the NFL in passing touchdowns, and he will be after the week is completely over. But nobody here is going to convince you Sam Darnold's a top 20 quarterback right now, at least. So I'm not trying to say he's replaceable, but I am kind of saying I still feel I would be pretty much as confident with Nick Mullins as Sam Darnold, maybe.
Oh, wow.
And maybe Sam Darnold is just that guy, and I'm completely stupid and just wrong. Because I've given Sam Darnold his flowers and everything. I don't hate Nick Mullins as much as a lot of people do.
I love Nick
I know I know it's really easy to say hey, if he just didn't turn the ball over, yeah, well, if the sky wasn't blue. But yeah, I would. The ceiling is definitely higher with Arnold, but depending on how long Darnold would maybe potentially be out, I would still feel fine that we'd be in a playoff position with Nick Mullins going forward.
Yeah, for the record, I think that the Darnold thing will resolve peacefully.
Yeah.
But the nagging Viking fan thing says to me, what if it's another damn torn meniscus and it's like the good version where he misses 4 to 6 games? That's
Yeah.
the type of doomsday shit that goes through my head once everything starts to get really good. What about you, Tyler? Do they do the old guy thing? Call Matt Ryan, call Phillip Rivers, call Tom Brady, or is that all just rah stuff for ESPN's First Take?
No, this rah. We don't need Nick Foles or Case Keenum or any of Blake Bortles, right? I think I'm fine with Nick Mullins as my backup quarterback, especially now that we have Aaron Jones. I mean, our entire plan with Nick Mullins last year was like, just let him sling it because we have no run game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, we didn't really discover Ty Chandler until about like way too late last season.
That same Bengals game that we joked about the tush push.
Yeah, that was sort of the turning point, right? And now that we have sort of an established, 1-2 punch at running back, I think I'd feel more comfortable with Nick Mullins than I did last year as far as limiting turnovers. That being said, I do want to kind of jump in on the Sam Darnold thing real quick and just say, my confidence level in Darnold is probably a little bit higher than Brev's. I think he's comeback player of the year when it's all said and done. And I equate Sam Darnold to like the year we had Sam Bradford. It's a step below Kirk, but it's still good enough to be, an average starter, right? You've got some traits you like there with Bradford. It was like the deep passing was really good that year, I felt. And I think Darnold, one thing that's really impressed me, aside from his arm, has been his sort of improbability. Obviously, there's some things you want to kind of like eliminate the shovel pass where he's like nearly getting sacked, and it's like
that was Nick Mullins, baby. That felt like Nick.
That's felt like Nick Mullins, right? Just don't make that decision, live to fight for another down. But Darnold's got some wheels on him, when he's making the right decisions and, first read's gone, second read's gone, he'll go, So I think that adds another element to the Vikings offense that we didn't really have with like Kirk or even Bradford, really. I mean, Bradford scrambled a bit. I just don't remember him doing it as much as Darnold has, but maybe my memory's fogged up.
Right now, Darnold has a better pocket presence than Bradford.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the question with me with Darnold is it worth bringing him back for one more year? I mean,
we're gonna have shows about that. Trust me.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that more, but he's at least making an argument. So let's leave it at that.
And I do want to clarify a bit my position on Darnold, because I by no means my Sam Darnold hater. I love Sam Darnold right now. He's my king. He's my everything. He's my reason to live. I think of it more like Darnold has been undeniable the first 3 games. I think there's going to be a natural regression point where he cools off a little bit, and that's the Sam Darnold. I'm kind of like, okay, if he misses extended time, whatever that would be, maybe Nick Mullins isn't far off, because I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be throwing 2.5 to averaging almost 3 touchdowns per game for very long. So I guess that's kind of my position on it.
Tyler, you said something about Kirk, again, being a superior quarterback to Darnold, which I understand. The only thing right now that Kirk is better at than Darnold is consistency. I swear to God, and I know you're not a huge Cousins guy, Tyler. I swear to God, there's no downgrade right now on the field. Third down efficiency is way the hell up. You don't have to worry in the red zone anymore about ruts. I'm talking about even from the last 2 years of Kirk. There was a time at Zimmer that the Vikings red zone offense was fantastic. But you agree that from your eye test shows you that Darnold is either right on par with Glory Kirk or is better than Kirk, right? Or not?
I mean, if we're talking like, are we talking Kirk last year? Not
whenever
Achilles Kirk, because post Achilles Kirk in my mind is far worse than what we had. First half season MVP run Kirk. But I would say like Darnold is in the Bradford tier, which is a tier below what Kirk was for us last year.
Okay. All right. So let's see here. I think we talked about this last week, but I think this has changed, and I'm probably gonna like roll my eyes looking back on this episode in a couple months. But last week, Brevin, we danced around it. We said, well, of course, this team, you're 2-0. They looked great today. What we said last week, they should be considered at least a playoff contender. But I swear to God, when you watch them play, they're even more than that. And I'm trying to figure out in my bones if I'm just so surprised that that they're this good that I'm trying to talk them into something more. Like, Brev, were you a Vikings fan, intense Vikings fan in 2016?
Yeah.
Okay. I know Tyler was because he grew up in it, and I guess you did too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is this team different than 2016, Brevin?
26. That's the 5-0 start, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't remember that season that great, just because that's back when I guess I can't call myself an intense fan because I really couldn't watch all the games because it was out of market and we
Yeah.
didn't have internet. So like from what I remember, this defense is, I don't want to say it's more consistent than the 2016 one was, but just and maybe I'm just not used to having a run game because of the last year or two, but the run game for this team feels a lot more consistent than that 2016 run game, because that was before did Adrian get hurt that year? And that's
He had
when
a
he came back.
meniscus.
Meniscus, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this team just feels way more complete. Run game, passing game, like it was kind of iffy because that was Bradford. And Bradford showed flashes, but even at that point, like I didn't know how confident you could be, because it kind of was like that carpet ride in 2016 is the year I keep thinking back to, and that's what keeps me from reaching out from calling them a Super Bowl contender, even though I kind of just did in my last Purple PTSD article. Go check it out. And I don't know, like once we pass that 5-game stretch, like if we go 6-0, that's when I'm like, okay, 2016 be damned, but. I don't know. I don't want to lie to you and say I could like remember exactly what the biggest difference between this team and 2016 was, just because I didn't get to watch the games all that much. But um, this team just feels complete. It feels incredibly complete is really the only word that comes to mind, and that's crazy to me, thinking of what we thought of this team a month ago.
I want to jump on the 2016 thing here before Dustin probably was planning another segue or something. I wasn't sure, so I want to get this in. I do think there's some parallels between this year's team and 2016. Like there's just times where, as much as I love Darnold and I'm higher on him than I am Brev, and I know Brev likes him, but like he has his concerns. I just think, like with this game, we got off to like a 14-0 lead, and then we kind of slowed down offensively for a bit, and credit the defense for really keeping the Texans in check. But I looked back at some of those Zimmer years where the only thing that was keeping us in those games was the defense. And then you would just have long, dry spells from the offense. And I still think that's an area the Vikings still need to work on. It's a bit different because you have Kevin O'Connell, so you have more faith in the offensive play calling, and obviously we're not at full strength. But you don't want, only 50% of the operation consistently working throughout the entire game, and then the other one just kind of comes and goes. So it's like when you're playing really, really good teams, that can kill you if your offense isn't doing crap for second, third quarter, kind of like the middle of the game. Then there were multiple opportunities for the Texans to kind of like creep back into that game, but just our defense was really good. But you can't always rely on that. So I think the key will be just if the offense is more consistent and the defense stays roughly where it's at, then we'll avoid a 2016 again, right? Where you start off strong and then you fall off a cliff, because there are those similarities between, can we trust Darnold at quarterback versus can we trust Bradford at quarterback? So I'm trying not to get my hopes too high up, but it's a great start. We're 3-0.
I want to add a little bit more context because it looks like I wasn't far off from my comments on the 2016 team. Looking at the first 5 games, the leading rusher for the Vikings for the first 5, 31 yards week 1, 19 yards week 2, week 3, 45 yards, week 4, 85 yards, week 5, 55 yards. And through the first 3 games of the season, what's our low, like 82 when Ty Chandler did it last week?
Yeah. So back in 2016, I didn't have podcasts or write about the Vikings, but I still did stats like I do now because that was just my hobby. That team, I didn't know how we were getting away with it. It had historically, it was the worst rushing offense in Vikings history. And it just didn't matter because the Vikings were masking it with special teams return touchdowns. The first game against the Titans, I think they had 2 defensive touchdowns. So the vibe was there that the intangibles were coming through. But this rushing offense, I can't believe I'm saying, doesn't have any problems this year. So I think that is a subtle difference like we talked about. And then one other thing I'm going to keep coming back to, because usually it's a bane, Brevin, plug your ears. It's a bane of the Vikings is point differential. Usually like 2022 when the Vikings were just absolutely cooking, their point differential was underwater. Right now, I think they either lead the NFL or they're second. And that is an indicator of how good a football team is. When you pull up the who's who of the NFL, like on January 15th, usually you can look back and see the teams that are still standing or the teams that beat teams' asses from time to time in the regular season. And right now, the Vikings do that. We'd be all stoked if this was a 3-0 start at all, if they had a point differential of 2. But it's like 55 right now. So they're really sticking it to good teams. And I don't care what anybody says about the Giants because they weren't supposed to be horrible on August 20th. We just said they were horrible after the Vikings beat them, and then they won on the road today against the Browns, who now the Browns are evidently a bad team as well. So, and even if you think the Giants are bad, the Vikings beat them by 22. What else do you want them to do? So I do have that dread, like that Vikings doomsday fan dread that 2016 could happen. But I just don't expect it because Brevin nailed it that this is really complete. Do either one of you, Tyler, did you daydream about the Super Bowl at all today after 4 p.m. Eastern?
I was just happy to get back to my hotel room, honestly. I spent the majority of this Vikings game unhauling a U-Haul with a bunch of heavy furniture.
Okay.
I had the game on my phone, so like I could hear snippets of it, but I wasn't really like tuned in. I just finished watching like the entire 2-hour game replay. So like I'm just now figuring out the whole context of the game.
Okay.
I got to 14-0, and then it was just okay. I gotta get to work. So,
okay. All right. What about you, Brev? Did you daydream about the Super Bowl?
Hell yeah, I did. So my roommates are Pittsburgh fans. So
Okay.
I'm watching the Minnesota game. They're watching the Pittsburgh game. Their family's from Pittsburgh. My family's, they're all from Pittsburgh. Ian's going to go downtown, get some pierogies. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about it like, hey, Vikings 3-0, Steelers 3-0. Maybe see in February. What a Super Bowl that would be. Justin Fields versus the Vikings. Who would have thought? Not us.
Yeah, I started doing it too. Not really because I like want to will it into existence. It's just that when I watch how good this team is, you can't help but think, what if it just continues? Like, what if this is not a mirage? This is not a team that's just going to faceplant and go 4-10 and then make my 7-10 prediction look right. That would be so mind-boggling if they just got bad next week all of a sudden, because they're just executing all over the place. All right, the last thing I want to ask you guys before we hop off, Brevin, how are you feeling about going to Green Bay next week? Because that's going to be a clash of the Titans, 2 of the best head coaches in the league. I think we can say that now out loud in good faith. How are you feeling? Let's assume Jordan Love's going to play because that shit always happens to the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, either way, even if Malik Willis plays, it's a divisional game. Divisional games, all bets are off. Like we could be 3-0. The Packers could be 0-3 and have looked like the worst team in the NFL. I'd still be iffy about it. Fortunately, Minnesota seems to have good luck at Lambeau when they play early in the season. So, I mean, I'm confident. I'm a little iffy. Just because like I'm still kind of pinching myself. This feels too good to be true. Because we start 1-0, you're like, okay, we somewhat expected to beat the Giants. Then you smacked San Francisco, and you're like, oh. Then you smacked the fuck out of Houston, and you're like, oh. So now if we smack Green Bay, I don't know. You got the Jets, then you could be looking at 5-0 going into the bye week. I don't know. I think I got to change my shorts if we win next week.
I like
I don't know.
I like how you jump to it. That's not that we'll beat them; it's that they're going to get crushed.
Yeah, know.
We don't do 1-score game anymore, bitches.
Exactly.
We're gonna get the blowout.
That's 2023.
Yeah. All right, Tyler. What about you? You're what are we 1 week out? Going into Lambeau, how are you feeling? Are you broad-shouldered or sheepish? What do you think?
Broad shoulders, baby. I mean, look, this is the biggest game of the season. And I'm not just saying that because it's a divisional matchup, like Brev said. It's the biggest game of the season because this is the first game where it feels like we have very real expectations for, ahead of the game, what this could look like. Because week 1 against the Giants, who cares? It's the Giants. Even if you win, no one's going to bat an eye. Week 2 against the Niners, Stephen A. Smith says it's a fluke. They had McCaffrey out. Stephen A. Smith, after week 3, probably still doesn't believe in us. But outside of Stephen A. Smith, I would assume that most NFL fans are now aware that the Vikings are 3-0. They look really good. It looks like they have a top 10 defense, a strong run game. Sam Darnold, the national media is talking about him like crazy. So now we finally have sort of this hype that's built around this team and expectations. And how does Sam Darnold handle the press, because he was drafted by the Jets and he was 19 and it never really felt like there, at least, he could handle like being in New York, the Big Apple, right? Now the Vikings are 3-0. This is probably the most attention they've had this season. How does he handle that pre-game? Is he still staying in that bubble like you mentioned, where it's just 1 week at a time, or does it all kind of unfurl? I'm still waiting for the signature Sam Darnold screw-ups, but I'm pleased by what I've seen so far. It's just going to be a huge game for us, man. If we beat the Packers, it's just so huge because it's just, they get 1 loss, we get 1 win, and just basic math there, right? That helps our chances at a playoff spot and potentially the division if things keep rolling the way they are. And just to close it out, I don't think I've ever been as oddly pessimistic, about a team that's 3-0, but that's what being a Vikings fan does to you. You're waiting for it to all crumble, and so far it hasn't. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying the ride.
So three games is a trend. It's a pattern, and 2 of those games were against top 5 NFL teams that the Vikings won handily. So I absolutely agree with you that now we have an expectation. The NFL national media, I don't give a shit about Stephen A. Smith. He'll probably in something, but the rest of the media will give the Vikings their flowers because most of them are reasonable, and they're going to be like, hey, you beat the Texans and the Niners, like really without flexing, like you're pretty darn good. The reason I feel really excited about this Packer game, though, from my perspective, is if they lose, I won't really care. Because that's the way it goes when you go to that damn stadium, and they already have house money to me in my heart. They have shown me in 3 games their DNA, and that is multifaceted. Like, I don't have to worry about the kicker for some reason. The defense, we were talking about top 10 in the show. The defense is like top 2 right now. And then I don't have fears about Sam Darnold falling off in a Dobbsian way or like Jake Browning. I don't have fears about that because talent has never been his problem. It's never been an arm issue with Sam Darnold. It's either been his geography sucks or his turnovers are problematic. So that's where even like it feels like O'Connell has got to a spot that I said this a couple days ago. He just needs Brad Johnson out there. He just needs a guy who's decent. And then Aaron Jones can do the rest. Flores' defense is satanic. Like, they just need a quarterback who's pretty good. And I think that's Darnold. I don't know why it took us till the start of year 3 for us to have this feeling. It's probably just the maturation of Kevin O'Connell. And then, by the way, Flores sticking around. But I'm really excited about this game because usually when we go to Lambeau, I'm either like, well, they're going to lose. And then they've got their doors blown off in 2021, 2022. Thankfully, they won the one last year. So I'm either expecting a loss, or when you go into this one, it's not desperation. They've won 3 games. If they lose to the Packers, so what? We'll go beat the old Packers quarterback the following week because I trust them. They're that good. So what an exciting show that we're talking about this team that every episode we did in the summer is 7-10, 8-9. And we believe that in our hearts. And now you have to flip that record at a minimum because that's what the talent level is at in the coaching. And then you'll start to daydream about the grand heights. And I swear to God, we're going to get to Darnold McCarthy debates. Hopefully those don't really matter until January, February, or early March. All right, gentlemen, this is the last time I'll talk to you guys probably in this group. Are you thinking that the Vikings will beat the Packers, or do you need to see the Darnold's MRI and Jordan Love prognosis and all that?
Vikes by 50.
Shout out to the Mini Men lyrics.
Jordan Love, Love Boat, Julian Love, don't matter. Vikes by 50.
Tyler, do you think the Vikings will drop this one or win it from your standpoint right now?
Get me Skoldock and a couple of days of self-reflection, and I'll get back to you because I have no clue. It's like we don't even know who the quarterbacks are going to be.
Yeah,
how am I supposed to...
It was a premature question. I got carried away.
No, Vikes by 50. Not premature. I'm supposed to be the negative one. Vikes by 50.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Later.
All right, later.
Later.